Hey everyone, thank you for joining. Here with Ruthan, Josh, and Olivia to talk. I don't know, what are we talking about? Retention, Clavio, loyalty, all the good stuff. Um, I first just want to start with the intros. Like all three of you have such kind of very impressive careers. You work at amazing agencies. Olivia, I'm going to start with you. More than a superficial background. How'd you get here? Yeah, what are you working on today? Please.
Yeah. I'm Olivia Grant. I'm general manager at the Growth Gurus. So I have a little bit of an interesting background. I'm first of all American living in Melbourne, Australia. So I've been here for going on 8 years and absolutely loving it. During my past kind of in the marketing world, I really was into the content side of things. So looking at content strategy, copywriting, and really diving into the actual strategy component. I did a little bit of time in PR as well, and then over that time, kind of leaned into more of that relationship component with client success and managing a number of different brands. Absolutely fell in love with that, but then kind of transitioned to a number of different roles focusing on business development and growth. And that kind of has led me to being general manager at the Growth Gurus. Um, the Growth Gurus is a digital marketing agency. So we primarily focus, though, on retention marketing. So that's email, SMS, loyalty. But we do look cohesively at the customer journey. So although we don't manage everything end to end, we really do like to look at the full picture because when we understand how people are coming to your website, how people are getting their products shipped to them, all those different components, that really allows us to hone in and be proactive and really intentional in the retention marketing space. And with that deep focus, we've been able to be, elite partners with Clavio. So I'm really excited for the topics that we're diving into today, but a number of other tech partners in the retention marketing space because of our expertise and really focus on understanding the ins and outs of the platforms to a really high caliber.
That's awesome. The empathy by having been on the brand side or like been on the content side and having seen everything, I know goes a very, very long way.
Yeah, I love that I have that kind of background. So when I'm talking to brands, I'm able to pull different examples and really truly understand like what brands are talking about.
Yeah.
It's great when I'm dealing with kind of, clients, but then also the team and just kind of
Yeah.
understanding different aspects of the business actually works. But we work with a variety of different industries. Primarily it's e-commerce, but
Mhm.
we work with a variety of different industries across different kind of global areas. So Australia, primarily, we're an Australian-based agency. I always have to tell people when they hear me speak for the first time, wondering if we're a US-based agency, but we are actually Australian-based. But we do have a number of different clients also in the US market too. So that's just something that we've been able to manage time zones
Yeah.
and having that experience with global brands. It really allows, our strategies and tactics to translate across different regions.
I tell everybody I got my grades from my decade running a brand, but it seems like it didn't impact you. So I'm glad you have a successful
I get
brand.
my hair dyed.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
fine.
There
Yeah.
it is. We're going to go from Australia to Australia. Ratha, introduce yourself,
Thank you.
please.
Bit about myself, or a fun fact, really. I used to work for Pepsi, selling Pepsi out of delivery trucks back
Oh,
in 2002.
nice.
So there you go.
Wow.
So used to go store to store selling Pepsis back in India. There you are. So bit of a different start to marketing, but that's truly a start to marketing where you're going door to door, understanding what is happening at the storefront and really at the vendor's end. So that was an exciting start. I've worked in digital, Aaron, I'm going to sound old. I've worked in digital for 18 years. I have a lot of grey hairs. They're all over. I won't show you too many more. And yes, a lot of them are from my 18-month-old son as well. Similar to Olivier, I migrated to Australia, Jesus, 21 years ago, a long time ago. But I've worked across Asia, Australia, and Europe and America. So, clued up, we are a platinum Flavio agency, but we also work across paid media and affiliate. It's definitely for us. We do a lot of fashion, a lot of e-com, and hospitality, food. in the last 2 years, I'd probably say I've seen the biggest market shifts, like talking to other agency owners, even before we started this, we're seeing a real shift in the market as to what people are looking for. So it'll be really interesting to talk through some of the topics that we have today. A lot of in-housing that we're seeing, even though brands don't have the skill sets, they're still trying to move things in-house. So yeah, lots of interesting things going on in market at the moment. So excited to get started.
That's awesome. Thank you. Last but not least, we're traveling to Singapore. Josh, you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Aaron. Hey, everyone. I'm Josh. Friends call me Josh, Josh Chin, and I'm one of the co-founders at Kronos. We started the business in 2017, and this is out of my dorm room in the National University of Singapore. Today, we have a team of about 70 people across 14 countries. We're a fully remote team, so that still is both a frankly a pain and a gift in the business. It's an interesting experience running a business remotely, let alone a services agency in the e-commerce space. It's not definitely not the most usual route to take. The majority of our clients are based out of the US, so that gives us a good kind of battleground for really honing in on communication and being really strong in and communicating across time zones. So that's an interesting one. And we've done this for over 7, 8 years now, for over 500 brands across the different verticals within e-commerce. But one thing remained the same, which was our specialization in e-commerce and retention alone. So when we first started out, Klaviyo was kind of a blip in the entire kind of MarTech landscape, and now they're this giant behemoth of a beast. But when this was in 2017, 2018, retention was a nice to have, given how amazing Facebook was performing at the time. Now it's a must-have. It's hygiene, and I'm really excited to talk about what's next and how do we take things to the next level and in the retention space.
It was glorious in 2010 when you could have a Facebook page and you could just get people for free, and then you'd share a message and everybody would see it, and then all of a sudden you had to start paying for it, and it was much harder at that point. Um, Olivia, I want to start with you, and all three of you. Thank you for the intros. I want to start with you with a very broad, unfair question, so take it where you want, and then Rathan, Josh, please just jump in. Um, how have customer expectations around retention changed in the last year, 18 months, whatever you want, right? I'm even thinking about what Josh said, which was like retention was a nice to have, and now like CAC is going up, like retention
Yeah.
is the thing. Olivia, walk me through how they've changed.
Yeah, I really like Josh's point of talking about retention was a nice to have and now it's a need to have. And in the retention space specifically, I feel like the topic of personalization was once maybe even a year ago, was like a nice to have, but now it's a need to have. And I think that that's kind of one of the major things that we're seeing with brands and the customer base is that customers are expecting personalization. It's not something that you can just kind of have do with a dynamic product feed or something like that. It's really intentionally understanding your customers and providing that red carpet experience of understanding, if they've purchased before, if they haven't, how many times have they purchased? Are they part of the loyalty program? Are they a subscriber? Like all those different things are really, really important. But also just the conversation that we're seeing with brands of collecting data from their customer, whether it's on a lead capture through surveys and things like that. But if your customers are giving you that information and that data, you should definitely be spending the time to actually leverage that data and craft that personalized experience. That's how you build customer loyalty. That's how you build customer trust. And so I think that that's kind of, we're seeing a lot of brands come to us and they're trying all these different tactics to collect customer data, but we don't see them actually leveraging it or leveraging it at scale. And so that's where, looking at platforms like Klaviyo, there's so much power in that platform, and that's where you can really personalize that customer journey at scale. So I think that that's kind of the shift that I've seen talking to brands, but then also just from the customer base of customer loyalty of what they expect from you.
Yeah, I think so many times when we talk to agency partners or with brands, I have to be like, let's pause for a second and take off your marketer hat and put on your consumer hat, and it's like, what do you want? And
Yeah.
like obviously
Yeah.
we want it to be more personalized. Josh, Rathan, I feel like I see you both nodding. Rathan, I'm calling you first because I see you opening your mouth.
Yeah,
And then Josh,
I,
yeah.
I can talk underwater, but I think retention was a nice to have to now a necessity. It's a great point to start, but often that we see with brands that we've worked with for years, um, the one with the shift in the economy, and I keep reiterating with the shift in the economy, both markets, God knows what's going to happen in the US with the tariffs. Um, yeah, but I think the challenge is going to be how do you actually keep retailers honest and or your businesses honest? And what I mean by that is it's very easy to go back to let's just email the entire database because the board wants it or someone wants it. So the segmentation piece is so important and list cleansing. All of these things are really, really important. But the realities of owning a business, which everyone here does, when you want that bottom dollar coming through, that's the biggest challenge that I'm seeing in market at the moment. There's segmentation, the customer needs are segmentation, personalization. The business needs are not aligned at the moment. And I think as the economy is continuing to be poor, that alignment is or misalignment is only getting broader and broader in my mind. I guess I'm speaking more towards Australian, Asian brands, a few of the US brands, but Josh, would be good to see what you're seeing in the US as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that it's come down to user experience at the end of the day. I don't know what the numbers are, but I think the average consumer receives like at least 100 emails a day, if not more. I certainly do, right? And standing out now becomes the challenge for retailers and for brands. It's not so much about in early days of emails, it's about actually landing in the inbox, getting DKIM, DMARCs, SPFs, everything set up correctly. That's long gone. Now it's all about thinking about what Apple Mail is doing. Like the most recent update now implies that user experience is top of mind across the board, from Gmail to Apple to Outlook eventually. And the the truth is we're not going to be able to game the system like we once were able to with these hacks and these words that you use in emails, doing things like using white text against white backgrounds to kind of stand out in algorithms and stuff like that. That's long gone. Now it's all about what does it mean for the end consumer first, and then working that backwards in what it means when it comes to just user experience as a whole. So I think that this means personalization is, again, a hygiene factor. It's a must-have. I guess the next step to that is what does it mean to take this to the next level and meet your customers where they're at versus the other way around, like pushing new ideas and strategies on a recipient that may not want them.
I think just on the personalization piece, I think there's something to be said about, we're handling emails, we're handling SMS, and I often say to brands, you do the branding, we'll do the marketing, if that makes sense. We can lead you the best traffic, we can drive the best emails, but if your website is not kosher and it isn't driving the best, conversion rate, we can only do so much. And that is, I think, a missing piece a lot of the times is that personalization from email. We've had cases where we made emails look whiz bang, really, really pretty. And then you land on the website, it looks like something that my cousin designed in the 1990s. And you're like, oh, shit, there's a completely different brand experience. So that cohesive brand experience and personalization. And I think in other markets, like in Asia, for example, you've got WhatsApp, you've got web notifications, got all these things. Whereas if you deal with markets in Australia, web notifications are still seen as some dirty topic, which is like, why did that thing come up? Like, why is my browser not blocking this already? So personalization on the website, I think, will be the next barrier. And I really look to like apps, Shopify, and what are they doing around something, and that'll make our jobs easier potentially.
Olivia, it feels like you literally led with that, where like, look, you've got the retention side, but you've also got the CRO, like conversion rate optimization.
Yeah.
Take that where you want. I'm also curious, like, are there any tools? This isn't you like saying, oh, this is the best, but like even small companies that you're exploring, we're like, oh, we're trying this out. Maybe in 6 months, I'll give like a mark. But yeah,
Yeah, I completely agree. That's one of the points that I mentioned about looking at the customer journey cohesively. So that's it's so important to understand end to end the customer experience because, as you mentioned, we can do so much on our end and make these beautiful emails and it having specific SMS triggered in compliments to the emails. But if the website experience doesn't match that, or even like the ad experience doesn't match what we're sending, then it seems really disjointed. And so when we look at a personalized customer journey, we're really looking at it end to end. So if we start with the ads, what kind of landing page do they get led to? Or are they coming from a specific source? So one of my favorite kind of unique tactics with source specific pop-ups. So speaking about tech platforms, we really like the platform Justuno. We've been a partner with them for so many years. But that's really taking those homepage and exit intent pop-ups to the next level and really that website communication experience. So it's just as simple as setting up a pop-up to collect customer information, but you can really do it source specific. So we have a supplement brand where they got a lot of traffic organically from a blog post that they were featured in. So we were able to call out that blog post, have similar imagery, similar messaging to that product that was featured in the blog post. And so it's a really complementary journey for that customer to come from the blog post, click on the hyperlink to the website, get served a pop-up that's talking about the message that they had in the blog post. And then we're sending them through a personalized welcome journey, knowing that they came from that source, that they were interested in that specific product, they read that article, that kind of thing, and we can carry it through that way. So I think that those things can really make a huge difference when you're looking at personalization. And that's where, when I touched on, it's not just a dynamic product feed. That's kind of the bare minimum, I would say, like having different modules and emails, but really crafting that personalized experience that's very intentional, based off of where they're coming, based off of how they're interacting with your brand inside and outside of the website. So yeah, I would definitely recommend kind of Justuno. They're really great for upsell and cross-sell, so it's not just list growth, but in terms of going beyond the basics of forms and pop-ups that we typically use in platforms like Klaviyo. I know that they're building out a number of different aspects of their forms at the moment. Platforms like Justuno allows you to easily tackle kind of that website personalization that I think is so, so important.
I love it. Josh, any other technologies that like kind of spring to mind? Sorry to like throw you on the spot. You could also
No,
just
all good. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, beyond, I suppose beyond the usual suspects, Klaviyo, of email, SMS, PostScript, Attentive, a bunch of them are doing really cool stuff in the space. We're also looking at what other modes of communication and channels that that aligns closer to what consumers are doing on a day-to-day basis, that aligns closer to their just daily activities without interfering with the experience of what they're going through on site. So with that in mind, we've looked at a handful of channels that are really interesting as a part of our collective kind of life cycle strategy across from lead capture all the way through to win back and sunset. Postcards are really interesting. We use PostPilot. I'm sure a lot of people listening use them as well. Beyond that, we're also looking at AI voice, ringless voicemail platforms like Para. Para is the one that I'm really excited about. We're running a couple of tests with our brands right now. Usepara.com, I believe, is their site, Para. And essentially what that does is it is an AI voicemail that's personalized to the end consumer based on information that you feed it. It has an integration with Klaviyo as well, so it's taking information like first name, address, last product viewed, stuff like that, that makes for a really cool voicemail that sounds like it's actually coming from a customer support agent or a person. And that makes it really cool. So
Cool.
that's something I'm quite interested in. There's also AI video platforms that we've explored and tested out, but it ended up being a little bit too heavy for email delivery. So that's back on the
Interesting.
evaluation for
Well,
now.
I want to create space if you want to jump in on technologies. I also am then going to switch us to segmentation stuff. So
Yeah,
if there's
just
any,
I'll be quick. I think, look, from an app perspective, we look at all the same apps that the team are talking about. There's Nosto, I'll add, but one thing that I'm cautious of is a bloated tech stack, and I'm really interested to see what Klaviyo are building around their customer hub. And this is not a free plug, even though I have a Klaviyo partner bottle right in front of me. But I think it'll be a key thing of where is the market headed? Because a lot of brands don't want 15 different apps to do 15 different things, you know. The amount of apps that come to us and say, hey, we'll do SMS while you do email on Klaviyo. And I said, it doesn't make any sense with the multimedia, different messages that we can now send out of Klaviyo in one flow, and they're improving that every day. It just, for me, it's consolidation, is the key till we get to a point, or we keep using these apps till we get to a point where you've got Salesforce-esque or Adobe-esque, not saying they work, but that level of expertise. If I was to look at an all-in where we're seeing real successes, platforms like Braze, which is a competitor to Klaviyo, really all in, really doing well, making a lot of ground here, I'd say.
they just had a super cool acquisition of OfferFit. I don't
I
know if
saw
you
that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. They're going to take everyone's breakfast, I would say, here.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to talk for a minute and a half, hopefully quickly, hopefully usefully, but just some thoughts. It's really fun watching you guys discuss this. Your comment about SaaS companies is so spot on. I'm like an investor and advisor in a bunch of companies in the ecosystem. And the answer is like, it's not, are you useful, but it's like, are you useful relative to every other decision that somebody could make? Like, cause it's like, it's the time you have to take. We took a strategic play of like, we literally built native into Klaviyo. And Josh, to your point, we now partner with PostPilot. And we're like, look guys, you already use these guys. They're amazing. We're going to be additive. We're going to be very quiet and like really impactful, but it's like, it exists there. It's not come to Orita and do that. And so I think like, I think all-in-one apps and all-in-one platform, like all-in-one apps are normally not great. Like it's really hard to be good at many, many things, but people that are like natively built into the platform to me is like where it's going for brands, right? It's like fewer and fewer and fewer people and more trusted agencies and then more trusted tech partners. So very much aligned. There's one other, I want to turn the topic a little bit to segmentation. I have a slightly different take on what really matters right now, because I think you guys know this so well. And we interact with like big brands, small brands, a lot of agencies, right? Like small, new, old, whatever. I think people take for granted segmentation. And so, yes, like Josh made the comment about like DMARC, DKIMs, awesome. That is done. What we see is there are still people, and almost everybody, who are using like the way to decide if somebody is engaged is based on the recency of an action. And that is like it. So it's like, cool, they click in the last 30 days or 60 or 90. And so what I used to do as a brand owner was I would be like, Josh hasn't clicked on my last 46 emails, but this 47th is a banger. He's going to click on it. Let me send it. I think people always think about the risk of that as like, well, it costs a penny, tenth of a penny, might as well send it. But like, we see so many brands who oversend, which has two really, really negative impacts. And I'm not talking about like Klaviyo bill. People talk about Klaviyo bills. It's like, you didn't sign up for Klaviyo to shrink your Klaviyo bill. Then one is like opportunity cost. You oversend Olivia, she unsubscribes. You now like, she's gone. Olivia, we loved you. You're gone. It's so sad. We now have to like go pay to acquire somebody else. I think the other is like when you oversend to people who aren't going to click, you literally don't land in the inbox of people who care. And so the reason I'm saying this, and again, I know you know this stuff inside and out, but like I, as like an investor and advisor, and obviously like founder in this space, I know a year from now, I'm going to get personalized. Josh, you already made the comment about a personalized voicemail. But like, Aaron, I saw you visited this, and it's going to be like the CEO of Nike is going to send me personalized video, something. my question is, in that world, is like, how do you figure out who's actually listening when you get 100 emails a day and soon it's 1,000? And then all of a sudden the content is incredible from all those. How do I figure out when Olivia wants to hear and like through what channel? That to me is like that incrementality piece is kind of, I mean, I don't have a great answer for it, right? It's like what we're thinking through all the time. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. I'm curious like how you guys think, because when you talk about retention, you all talked about different channels. Like, how do you think about segmentation? How do you make sure that people aren't just like optimizing for the people who signed up, but they're capturing that midterm and long term? Yeah.
I'll chip in here. I got two thoughts, like very broadly speaking. One, it's the I guess the mindset in which we're going about doing this, right? There's the proactive approach and there's the reactive approach, and I think it has to be a combination of both. Proactively, preference centers and the likes, meaning how do you want to hear from us, right? That's a question that brands should be asking all the time, and asking proactively at some stage in that cycle, right? Then the reactive component to that is just identifying recency, sure, but also engagement across platforms. There's site engagement, active on site, email, SMS, opening up voicemails, that sort of stuff, I think needs to be taken into consideration as a holistic picture in how we determine engagement as an equation. And by extension of that, on the flip side is how are we using that information, right? So Orita makes it super easy, right? Shout out to you guys, obviously. But on the flip side, it's also how do we identify the segment of customers and prospects that are most likely to convert. We're not super interested in those that are already super loyal, right? We're going to have a completely different strategy for engagement on that segment of customers. That's often a little bit more high touch, a little bit more personal, a little bit more kind of pick up the phone and ring people kind of a situation. And then there are people who are just not a great fit and they're not going to convert at all. And then there's that middling segment of people on the fence that are about to convert, they've shown interest, but they haven't yet converted or they haven't made a purchase in X number of days. That's an interesting segment to identify. And then breaking that down even further into separate kind of categories is where my mind's at and how I think about segmentation.
Thank you. Rathan, Olivia, either of you want to jump in here? I can.
Yeah.
Olivia, you go.
Olivia, please.
There's a couple of things that with segmentation that comes top of mind of just kind of leveling up your segmentation. So obviously there's, the discussion that we just had about engagement and that, can be good for a number of different instances. I think that with looking at behavioral segments, stuff like that, obviously great, and utilizing features like the audience breakdown feature in Klaviyo, that really allows you to do some testing and being like, okay, if you are looking at example for engaged segments and you can see, okay, engaged 90 days really brought in the majority of the revenue versus engaged 180 days or something like that, or like the click-through rate was higher, the engagement, all that kind of stuff was higher, then that allows you to like hone in, kind of looking at different types of content and what resonates with different users. But what I think when it comes to segmentation of taking it to the next level is really looking at predicted segments, so expected date of next purchase, of really setting up those expected date of next purchase in the next 30, 60, 90 days, that kind of stuff. But my favorite segments to look at are RFM segments. So looking at, the champions, the loyals, the at-risk, the needs attention, and looking collectively, once again, at the customer journey experience. So if someone is at risk or needs attention, what are you doing either through automations to be proactive, and as soon as they drop from a loyal to at risk, triggering a flow in automation to get them through, but then also looking at a number of different targeting tactics. You can send segments from Klaviyo to ads and, target them on that way. You can do things with website communication. If they come back to the website, really communicating with people, and I think that that's something that was brought up of where they are in the customer journey. And so when talking about like discounts and all that kind of stuff, RFM segments I think is a really, really intentional way to discount, especially for people who have purchased from you in the past. So instead of, just kind of doing a simple abandoned cart flow, they've either made a purchase or they haven't. And those who haven't made a purchase, they get a discount to try to get them to make their first purchase. But everyone who goes through the never, or they've made a purchase, they're not getting a discount ever. I don't think it's the best strategy. I think that if you're open to discounts and you have somebody that was previously a champion or a loyal and they're at risk or needs attention and they go through an abandoned cart flow, we should be giving them an offer because we want to do everything in our power to win them back because they were previously one of your most loyal customers. And so that's really like true intentional marketing, I think, and that personalization based off of how people are interacting with your brand in real time. It's not just are they a customer versus are they not a customer, and that's where you can really boost that customer loyalty and really focus your time and effort of keeping champion and loyals, and trying to bring up some of those recent people and those people that are starting to engage and show those signs of champion and loyals into that funnel of being champion and loyals. So that's kind of with segmentation, that's a lot of the strategies and tactics that we're focusing on, whether it's campaigns and doing testing to try different engagement tactics and using the audience breakdown of seeing, okay, if somebody drops to at risk, we're finding actually social proof is more powerful to get them back to the website than a discount. So then let's set up an automation with social proof when somebody drops down to at risk because we've done some testing and we've seen that actually is getting them back engaged. So yeah, the RFM segments, I definitely think is something that people need to talk about a lot more.
Thank you. Ratan, what's up?
Yeah, I guess going back to something that Josh had said about, channel preference, that's an ongoing. Where do you want to hear? We've had vast and varied customers. One customer, what you were talking about voicemails, they would actually have their customer support person actually call the database, pick up the phone and call the database. Is that scalable? No. Do I want an AI voicemail? God knows. I don't know yet. I have to hear it first. It's funny having worked in the industry for as long as I have. You're always going to have some fancy fancy product that comes out. I still remember 10 years ago we had a client send us a video saying they had a new agency showing them those videos that came out saying, "Hey, I want to talk to you, Brandon," holding a little postcard with their name on it and stuff. And I was like, God, that's cheesy, but it works. All these different things work. So I guess the point is channel preference. It's ongoing. It's not it's not a one-stop shop where you say email or SMS or WhatsApp. It's constantly changing, or you just respond on the website. You just keep coming back. Do we need to keep emailing you? No. And I think to Josh's point, there's, and a shout out to Aaron, your team around, I think one of the key aspects that we haven't really touched on thus far is deliverability. With, I think, something in the recently concluded Afterpay sales in Australia 2-3 weeks ago, there was an astronomical amount of emails sent out. There was 90 plus emails in my inbox by 9:30 a.m. And how do you cut through the noise? How do you cut through people? I had a brand who we'd worked with in the past sending 3 emails in the space of an hour. There's a level of desperation, but to Olivia's point, you've got ads, you've got other channels. Let's just use some of those, because slamming the database isn't going to do it. And I think one other point is database acquisition. We constantly lean on our brands to acquire new customers. We're at the bottom of the funnel in CRM. We need new people to talk to. It's like going to a party, or it's like stepping on LinkedIn. It's an echo chamber. Unless you add a new connection, you're always going to hear from the same person repeatedly. It's not you, Aaron. Don't worry. I don't hear from you that often on LinkedIn. It's but you get the point. It's like, how do you break out of that echo chamber and make sure that you're not there constantly as a brand?
I'm leaving you voicemails every day.
Yeah.
And I'm going to post LinkedIn comments every day.
Make sure you get that video as well.
There it is. Also, hi, Ratan.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Josh, you mentioned PostPilot.
Yeah.
Maybe we could spend a couple minutes talking about addressability, which kind of dovetails with what Olivia and Ratan were just talking about, like hit up in other channels. And then I do want to turn back and talk a little bit about retention metrics, but let's first talk about addressability. When do you use direct mail? Who's it good for? How do you think about it as part of your retention strategy? I think it's much bigger in the US than elsewhere, but yeah, I don't know. Josh, take it away.
I guess just to clarify, by addressability we mean the
Ah,
ability of us as advertisers and marketers to identify
but
reach
no,
and
let me ask a better question. When we talk about addressability, let's say that you get your deliverability on email perfect, which means you send an email, Olivia's going to
yep
get it. There are a lot of people who don't make a buying decision because of email. So it doesn't matter if you have the best click rate and she sees it, she may not make that purchase. And so that's why it's not just email, it's why you also experiment with SMS, or you also experiment with direct mail or retargeting or out of home or all the other channels. Because it's
yep
like some alchemy, but it's also some level of like incrementality. Like you cannot get this person to purchase because of email. Even if they have an unsubscriber, you definitely can't get them. So I'm
yeah
curious, like, I'll just rephrase the question, like, why are you playing with direct mail? Is probably just a
yeah
much simpler question.
that's
Yeah.
yeah that's way easier for for people to understand for sure. I struggle with it as well, all right, and I think that the the key, well, at least our approach at Kronos, right, is that our job is to find an edge for our clients, and it's constantly shifting, right? The moment SMS becomes a mainstay, everyone's doing it. You're not having an edge anymore. It's hygiene. You have to do it. So we're constantly on the lookout for what's that 1%er growth that can happen. And often that means exploring new channels that people often kind of go, ugh, postcards? Ew. Who even looks at postcards anymore? And so that began a kind of a series of experiments around new channels, new ideas, new strategies, new approaches. Uh, but we don't obviously don't do it across your entire database, right? We're not doing this across our entire portfolio. We're testing, a tiny portion of our list at a time, with intention, with a strong hypothesis in mind, and in some cases conducting holdout experiments, just looking at the piece around incrementality, looking at what kind of an impact it's actually making to revenue at the end of the day. And it's hard to determine exactly what that impact looks like, because there's obviously there's an interplay of channels involved. No one's only looking at postcards and making a choice of whether to buy or not. They're also looking at ads. They're looking at what they see on Google, on blogs, on emails and SMS. But it's certainly helpful to take a proactive approach to these things than to kind of sit back and wait. So that's my philosophy behind that, and that's why tools like Para and voicemails came about. But we'll see, right? That's I remember a time where chatbots were on Messenger were all the rage, and now it's not that exciting anymore. So
I love the framing of looking for an edge in that 1%. Um, I'll just share a little bit. We started working with PostPilot very quietly 6 months ago. We announced publicly, I think about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, that we're doing it. What we do with PostPilot is the same thing we do with Klaviyo, which is like, we're just the math guys. I love saying that. I'm a history major. My co-founders are the math guys, but like Arita, as a collective, Royal we are good at math. One of the things that happens with direct mail is you'll send out $10,000 worth of cards and you'll get $100,000 worth of revenue. And somebody will say like, cool, 10x ROAS, because it looks like performance budget. And Josh, to your point, it's like there's some alchemy that made that.
yeah,
We do the same thing, but we actually run holdout groups to like really prove out the incrementality. Is like, did that postcard actually create value, and for which segment? So you can like rinse and repeat it. Because if you don't kind of treat each one of these channels like, yes, there is that alchemy that happens with like a great product and a great website and like everything we're talking about. But as much as possible, you got to figure out like, did this actually make the impact or not? Because otherwise, you're going to start spending a lot, because you're just going to see attribution in a lot of different ways. Ratan, I want to ask you a question about metrics, and then Olivia, I'll turn to you. Um, think about a good retention program, and think about like we introduce you to a good brand that's in your ICP. What are the metrics that they are looking at, and what are the metrics where you're like, I cannot wait until they understand that these are the metrics they should be looking at to figure out if they have a good retention program or good email.
Yeah, great question. I guess for us, it's a couple of things. If they're an established brand that repurchase, how many people are coming in purchasing again? So I love using examples. So I'll go with a beauty brand that we work with recently a big sale. They concluded 73% of sales were from returning customers. And they asked, "What's your team doing?" Because we manage the entire CRM program, and I just showed them that statistic, and I said 73% were led by us, indirectly or directly. And that's a phenomenal drive. That tells me new customer acquisition. So it comes back to directly addressing your question. What am I looking at? Returning customers. I'm looking at, anything functionally like click rate or any of that stuff in CRM land. That's yes, it'll come as part and parcel of our audit. But I would say the deeper insights around, are people coming back and buying from your brand? Basket analysis. What are they actually buying from you? How often is that being purchased? And then trying to improve on that. And then I keep saying it again and again, new customer acquisition. How many new subscribers have you added, and are they converting? Because, to Josh's point, Facebook used to be so wonderful at driving leads, lead gen campaigns. We'd all run them, win a $500 gift card and you're the best subscriber. They don't convert anymore. That's the truth of it. They don't convert because everyone is giving you a free wardrobe or a free this and a free that on Facebook. And people are over it. So we need to find that edge of, where are we acquiring customers? Is it doing collabs with other brands? That's where we're seeing success. So those are the kind of things that I would say that makes sense. So hopefully I've addressed your question in that roundabout way.
Yeah, that's great. Olivia, I want to create space for you as well. Some metrics that are like top of mind for you, some metrics that you think people are looking at that maybe they shouldn't be.
Yeah. So overall, when we manage the retention marketing, we're looking at the Klaviyo account or whatever platform, like the account health overall. So we're making sure that the general metrics, click-through rate, engagement, revenue, deliverability, all those things are healthy. But I think that it really does depend on each brand and their goal. And so that's something we very early on established with them during kind of the onboarding stage. If it's a project or if it's an ongoing retainer, we're having those constant conversations of what are their goals and how we can work together to achieve that. So there's certain brands, obviously with retention, we're looking to retain customers. So you're looking at things like the repeat customer rate, but we like to look at different aspects of funnels of, when people are coming back and purchasing, where is their drop off? We like to study kind of how we can get a customer for life. And so we've had brands that they know that if they get somebody to purchase 5+ times, they're a customer for life. So our goal now is to look at the funnel of first purchase or no purchases to purchase number 5 and try to get people there and look at those key areas within that customer journey that there's drop off and how we can be proactive, how we can nurture, how we can win back, things like that. And so it really comes down to the brand's goals. If they have a subscription program, we want to get as many subscribers, but we want to retain the subscribers. So where is the drop off of the average churn for subscribers? How can we be proactive to get them over that hump, but then also extend the customer lifetime value? So there's a number of key things that I think most brands are focusing on. I think most brands are of course focusing on revenue. They're looking at engagement. I think that most people know that open rate is very skewed now, so it is something that we're always monitoring, but it's something that we're more so looking at the engagement. But I think that it's also important to think about, especially with monitoring campaigns, not every campaign is to drive revenue. There's other use cases for certain things, and so that's where we really need to be aligned and focus on what the goal is at hand, and then the strategy from there to craft that and achieve that goal.
So much. That was great. Josh, anything you want to add in?
Yeah, just a final few words. I'm a big fan of tracking repeat purchases over time, like what Ratan's alluding to. But that's not the full picture. What we have found in our experiments is that, as much as we would like to claim the credit for that success, a big factor of repeat purchases don't fall with what we do. It falls in the nature of the product and the quality of the product itself. You might have a naturally replenishable product that people hate and they're never going to come back to buy again, no matter how amazing the marketing and packaging looks on emails or SMS. On the flip side, we work with brands that sell mattresses, and customers are rarely ever going to come back again for another mattress in like 5, 10 years. So that's difficult. That's hard. And so I've been on this debate for a long time on what is that North Star metric for retention as a as a channel, as a vehicle. Is it revenue? It's hard to say. Is it click rates? I used to believe so, but not exactly. And so where I'm at right now is something that doesn't sound as sexy, but I think is reasonably helpful to make decisions around. And that's clicks, like raw number of clicks, and how it progresses over a month against the growth of the overall business as a whole. So it's almost like, what is that growth of like just raw number of clicks over time? And how does that compare against the overall growth of revenue of the business, right? If it's outpacing or at least on pace with revenue, that's a great sign. And the reason for that is not all clicks are created equal. Not all traffic is created equal. Traffic coming from email and SMS and retention channels in general converts at 3 times higher than just general traffic alone. Is what we saw based on the many audits that we've done, right? And so the more clicks and the more traffic we generate from a retention program across these different channels, the more efficient marketing becomes. Because what's happening on the front end with ads and marketing spend overall is going to remain. But the more efficient we are with retention, the more efficient overall marketing is going to be, and MER and all these metrics that CMOs care for are going to look a lot better.
I love this. I love making up new metrics. I'm all for this, Josh. I like when I was at Loop. When I was at Loop, I talked about like net conversion rate. Nobody knew what that meant. I'm all in. That makes a ton of sense. Ratan, Olivia, any
Yeah,
comments or
I
anything?
had a comment that it was just one thing that you said, Josh, that I think is important for brands to hear and to leverage a little bit further is especially we see in products that are in the health and wellness and supplement space, which we work with a lot of brands in that industry, is that I tell brands your product is not going to work for everyone. Like that's a given, and there's nothing wrong with that. It works for a number of different people. So what we need to do is actually collect the customer data to understand what it was that didn't work for them and see if we can be proactive in that post-purchase experience. Make sure that they're using the product correctly, make sure that they're storing it correctly, they're incorporating it in their daily routine, things like that, to give them the best chance of having success with the product. What does success look like? How they should be feeling, things like that, so that post-purchase experience. But then collecting that customer data to understand why it wasn't working for them, to kind of either maybe redirect them to other products and jump in and so that they're a customer in other areas, or to just gather that data and understanding of like, our product is not working for these types of people. And so when it comes to targeting, whether it's for ads or just, in general, then when people come into the database of collecting customer data and being like, okay, this person has this type of lifestyle, or, they're suffering from these kind of issues, we should recommend them this product instead, because previously we were having these people purchase this product and they were churning off and we lost trust with them. So I think that kind of mindset of with looking at repeat customers or just even the first time customers, of really diving in, collecting data, understanding the data, and seeing how it fits into your overall strategy, whether it's through automations or just kind of consumer research of what products make sense for what people. So I think that that's an important point to make, is that it's something that, if somebody turns off and they're, giving a product 1 star, you take it personally, but you should actually kind of look into their experience. Did they take the product correctly? Were they set up for success and educated? But then also, why did it not work for them? And then what can you learn from that moving forward?
Thank you. I have one more question, but before I go there, Ratan, anything you want to chime in on?
No, I think they were all great points. And to the point that I'd made about 70% returning, I think Josh and Olivia raised great points. It works in particular industries. Beauty, you expect subscriptions. I should have qualified my statement with we exclude existing customers, but it's like subscriptions and all that. But it's non-subscriptions what you're looking at, and then one of the important factors in any business is NPD, new product. What are you doing to actually help drive new product? And one of the things like PostPilot that the guys are talking about is sampling. We encourage sampling considerably so that you can actually cross-sell your product without the need for someone to actually purchase. How do you do that? We've got a few brands that do it extremely well. What better than to get in your order? Here's a taste of what we have.
That's great. All right, we got a couple minutes left. I'd love to hear from each of you. First of all, and most importantly, like where can folks find you? And then if you have any last word, share the last word, but keep it tight so we can all, I know you guys all have like big days ahead of you. I have dinner with my kids, so we're at that time right now. Josh, I'm going to start with you, and then to Olivia, and then Rathan, you'll close us out. If you have any words of wisdom, awesome. If just where can everybody find you? That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. A quick point. I know we briefly spoke about discounting, but I would strongly encourage brands to run, if possible, cohort analysis and experiments around
Great.
what would a customer spend across a 12-month time horizon if they started the relationship off the discount code versus those that have not. In the test that we've conducted, the difference is a lot. It's a lot more than you might imagine. Where could people find me? LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I'm on the LinkedIn game, so come find me on LinkedIn and come engage with my posts. Also, YouTube. I'm putting up some content on YouTube on a weekly basis, and my most recent videos on Apple Mail and how to kind of navigate around the changes that's been made over there.
That's awesome. And thank you for the point about discounting. That is a really cool insight. So thanks, man. Olivia, next to you.
Yeah, one thing that I just wanted to mention that there was a lot of talk of personalization, and you can see that it's a topic that I get really excited about. But what we always tell brands is really to ensure that you have your foundation set up. And so we work with a number of different brands from startups that were setting up their foundations before they even have driven any traffic to the website, and all the way to enterprise brands that have really established customer journeys. So regardless of where you are, the foundations are key. And by foundations, I mean, those clear areas in the customer journey: welcome, abandon, browse, post-purchase, win back, things like that. And when you have those foundations established, you're closing those larger gaps in the customer journey and making for a cohesive customer journey experience. Once you have that, then that's where the fun comes in with like the personalization and those different tactics. I wouldn't recommend a brand spending this time and energy building out these hyper personalized strategies if you don't even have those foundations established. So that's something that, like I said, enterprise brands, were building their foundations for them because they focused elsewhere, and they're actually leaving so much revenue on the table with not even having that kind of basic foundation set up. So just wanted to say that's definitely something that I would have as your first priority. And then from there, you can do small, different tactical improvements of understanding where there's the biggest drop-offs, where there's the biggest opportunities, and that's where you should really be focusing your personalization strategy first and foremost, and doing testing. We always believe, like, no one has to be right or wrong. Let the data speak for itself. And so I think that that's a really important concept for brands to look at and have that approach. Testing is extremely powerful. When it comes to how you can get in touch with me, LinkedIn as well. Our website, growthgurus.io. I love to chat, love to talk. We have a great team. Happy to jump on a call with anyone and just kind of hear about your brand and have a discovery session and just, see how we potentially could support you, or just offer kind of that ear to listen as well.
Thank you. Rathan, last but not least.
Okay, finishing off, I'll be really quick. I'm adding Josh and Olivia on LinkedIn right now. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find CleanUp on LinkedIn. Like Josh said, it is a game. I know we're all playing it. last finishing statements, I'd probably say really thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone else. It was really insightful for me as well. Last bits and bobs I'd probably go with is, keep testing. Keep testing, to the point that Olivia made. Keep testing. Know that you've got your setup correct. Try new channels. Try new things. And don't spam your database, for the love of God. And my last line is, discounting is not a strategy; it's a tactic.
Oh my
That's
God,
what
we
we
need to
always say.
spend. I got so lost with all these. This is awesome, and I feel like we should spend 30 more minutes on discounting. We'll find another time. All three of you, thank you. Like I have a page and a half of notes. Like this is awesome, and I get to talk to you guys all the time. So appreciate the time. Yeah. Anyway, have a great rest of the day. Cheers.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, guys.